I just bought some milli-mill and selling lightning. That is technology. We just have not defined it. I think a lot of research has been put in there. We just now need to, I'm serious. We now need to begin to look at how do we package and patent this research for good. DG mentioned for humanity. Is that right? You don't believe me? Watch out. Let's put, Daniel, please introduce yourself. Here's the stuff there. Baba, do you have your mic there? It must be somewhere in there. Hey guys, can we have one mic? Okay, hold on. He'll use this one. Yeah. Let me get that one. Thank you. Just short and sweet. After you're going to be ready to do your presentation, my friend. Okay? Yeah. Brother Daniel, how you doing, my brother?
I'm good, Doc. Thanks.
You are not in the Daniel's den. Give us your surname, sir.
I got out for the week. My name is Daniel Naidu. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called CXI Africa. DG, SG, good to be with you guys again.
Yeah. And CXI, it nearly sounds like CIA, but CXIA. What do you do?
So we are a 4IR, Fourth Industrial Evolution, not revolution, because we're constantly changing. Training and developing company focusing on extended reality. Extended reality being the umbrella term for virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and other components of the fourth industrial evolution space.
And you're going to show us some couple of things in a minute.
I think I just walked in. You have to excuse me, but I think the slides are set up.
No worries. As we get the slides ready, we'll come back to you. Dr. Boshoman.
I'm well, and how are you, Dr. Mulapo?
When the Royal Highness was speaking about rural areas, and I saw you there, you from the rural area, which part?
Moleji Skuruwe Kolimpopo.
Umupedi. Mona shula shule is paid.
Tui.
Then you came to Joburg, and then after all the journey, you started Khabo Cars. Talk to us about it.
It actually started when I was still young. I was still in standard 4, now called grade 8. I realized that I loved cars, and there was no car at home. Then when I saw what backyard mechanics were doing, and then I said, no, my car is not going there because I'm going to have a car. Then that's when I started my career to say I'm going to be a motor mechanic. And I said it is this or nothing. And to cut the long story short, on the job training. I was just on the WBLDP program.
Well, what is WBLDP program?
Work-based learning development program, which is a pilot under ILO, QCTO, DHET, which was piloted from the 29th of November last year until end of March this year. So me and Natasha were the two representatives to do the table interview about how the whole training happened. Fortunately, we are already doing it because we are already providing SME. You are expected to comply with the workshop and all those and the ratio of 1:3, but you do not have the mandatory grant, IPEP from DTIC. You only have discretionary grant, which is that 46%. We just wanted to prove that it actually can be done from a township and rural area. All we need is the amendment of the funding policy to say, here's the 206th. However, if you are from a township and rural area, we'll set a certain amount so that we also help you because you're still expected to comply 100%. That's our plea to say it is doable. The model is working. It can be done from a township and rural area. Thank you.
Dr. Isaac Boshoman, and I know that DG noted that. Thank you so much, Papa. You can be seated.
Thank you.
Yeah. As we get ready for Ape and Amy, after Ape's presentation, you're going to get Ntatemolocho and them for the interview. Baba, let's go quickly on the AVR.
Okay, so is the slides up?
Okay. Now, what's the difference between AR, AVR? You know, I'm doing it for my man from Trinidad. You look at his hair, he look like Moses, you know what I mean? So, you know, no, but this technology was there in the Bible. God put the 10 Commandments on the tablet. You see what I mean? Sure. That's a fourth industrial revolution stuff. Tablets were in the Bible already, you know. So, come on, guys, don't laugh now. You're catching the joke, you know. Okay, let's go about this presentation. I'll go for it.
So, basically, this is what we do when we go out into the marketplace. Firstly, let me say, Doc, that since I was last year, many things have happened positively. We've established our training center in Midrand.
Yeah, but be slow. Explain to SG was here, DG was not there. We gave this young man an opportunity. How many of you remember? Few people were here. It's all about opportunities. Is that right? We gave this young man an opportunity. He is loaded. Both of us, we came from the US, from a lot of this technology part, but he had a passion to say, but even in that area, though I can for IR introduce cybersecurity, we were looking at a model, EEC, we're looking at a model of AVR, augmented virtual reality. So Babu's told you, last year he was here, we gave him an opportunity from last year to this year, because you know I like action. I told you, I like return on investment. So from last year to this year, what happened?
So we established a training center in Midrand between the two giants, VodaWorld and Adapt IT. You know, it's always good to be a small fish in a big pond, because you can piggyback on the big fish sometimes. And so we did. And we took in 30 students. From 95% of the 30 students were graduates out of the universities in South Africa, and we put them through our unique comprehensive program in XR development. This particular program was developed in collaboration with developers around the world, Singapore, US, UK, Mauritius, and some of our local academia. Professor Barry Dwolotsky was the Director of Innovation at Wits University. Professor Pius Olwani was the head of IT at TUT and some other academia. And we started the ball rolling. As I like to say, small talk, big walk, and we started to walk. We just completed our first session on the 6th of May. One of our graduates is here today, Botumelo. Can you please stand? Botumelo Ramakoa has done exceptionally well to the point that we have now employed her as a full-time employee.
You see, that's what DG was saying. If the CETAs can give us money, but we also need to deliver, guys, that we turn those learnership into employment. Now we're talking, because the resources are not like this. The resources are becoming like that. Yeah. So congratulations on that.
So we've actually employed 3 of the graduates that have come out. There are a few others that are going to be interviewed by Cyril this afternoon, and a few more by another tech company, Redem Technologies, that are looking to take between 3 and 5 of the graduates.
Okay, let's go quickly now.
So
XR, what is the word X meaning?
X is digital transformation.
Okay.
Or extended, anything to do with the reality, yeah. So what we do is when we go out to the corporates, because we are now starting to engage, for those of you that are not familiar with extended reality, it is a basic form of simulation, okay? And to those that are saying, well, how do I get into this technology? Well, you know, knowledge is a human right. And we believe through extended reality, we can afford everybody to get access to information. If you can't get it through the books, you will get it through digitization. And that's one of our main aims right now, is to go into the rural areas. Our center number 2, center number 3 are coming up in Addo, in the Eastern Cape, and Bushbuck Ridge in Mpumalanga.
Okay, then the next slide.
So this is what we do with the corporates. We do a C-suite awareness day with them, and then we do a train-the-trainer session with management, whereby we go through what extended reality is about, what are the benefits, how can we use this as a intervention into their digital, into their value chain, how can we digitize and make easy some of what they are currently doing. Some of our courses that we are offering, fundamentals in virtual reality, we do animation, we do mobile application development. Our course is 3 months of in-person training and 3 months of project-based learning. The projects we bring in from the private sector or public sector, we work with government, we work with the private sector, currently working with some of the mines. We are also working with sandparks, who have now in the process of signing an MOA with us to develop critical skills training amongst the communities around the periphery of the parks. Ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, some of our most impoverished communities live on the periphery of the parks. But yet, if we look at Kruger National Park, which is probably our iconic feature in this country from a tourist perspective, none of that, or hardly any of that benefit goes to those communities, and we intend taking the skills to those communities.
Okay, last two, okay, or do you have another one there? Let's quickly there. Oh, the recruitment of learners, yeah.
So the third phase, or the fourth phase or fourth step of how we integrate or interact with schools and companies is we identify who the particular learner is, we do an interview, and we register them for the program. Thus far, we've been very fortunate, DG. I must thank you and the government for supporting us, and we are able to take in previously disadvantaged, not just previously disadvantaged, but economically disadvantaged students into the program, and to have it fully paid plus a stipend to the student.
For the next 2 days, Koketso and the guys will be there with the goggles and glasses, all right?
Yes, absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the CEO and founder of CXIA, partnering with ICANN, UTVET colleges, in addition to cybersecurity, Siangena Ngeni, virtual reality. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thanks, Doc.
Give him a wonderful round of applause, bro.
Thank you.
Let me introduce House Amy. You need to come up here. This is Dr. Amy Zachariah. And before I introduce Ape, because you're going to be sitting here after Ape, Babum Locha, you'll be joining there. Let's just have a 2 minute talk, and then I'll be back after some couple of minutes. Look at House Amy. Originally, where are you from? Are you from? I'm from my mother. You know, where are you from?
I'm born in Botswana.
From Botswana. How could we say Botswana who are watching online?
Dumelang Botswana, SADC Dialogue. So you have Botswana here representing.
Dr. Amy, you've just finished your doctorate. What was your doctorate all about?
I developed a strategic business model for public high institutions in South Africa. So the case study focused on public universities in South Africa.
And right now you also did something comparing the TVET model and the university model. What did you find out about that?
There are key findings that are very, very interesting. So it turns out that the higher education budget from the government, 80% of it is spent on universities, whereas around about 10 to 20 spent on TVET. But you need round about 60,000 to educate a university student a year, whereas you need 10% of that to educate a TVET. So for every 1 student you take to university, you can take 10 to TVETs. Whereas the skills that are required currently, we need more people coming from TVETs than from universities. So that is a very key finding.
And the DG is here, and I would like for the DG to get a hold of your research there. So today, before we get a speaker, I'm going to interview. What would you say to the DG? He's here.
Direct training to TVETs. That would be my strong recommendation.
And he said something important, and I know you were there listening. TVET is good, but also I think the ruling party, we made them the future technology, future skills How do the mentors, mentees, trainers, teachers, in your research, what did you find out about the necessity to empower? My brother from another mother, he's bald-headed, I'm with hair, so we'll forgive him, and man with a bow tie.
Let's talk about problems. And in our complex and complicated multiverse being all of the universe's problems, they're so complex and complicated that they cannot be solved, and thus we don't have to deal with them because someone else is dealing with them. And that is the biggest untruth in our world. Are two maps where the size of the countries is actually defined by the relationships, or their ratio towards the relationship with the others surrounding us. This is a population growth. These maps are about 10 years old, but I'm just, I want to pinpoint these two maps. Because quite often, and this is kind of, I think, one of the reasons why I'm here, I'm simple, slow, stubborn, and stupid. Quite often, the easiest thing, because the world is full of wicked problems, it is easy for people to talk about small things. Your local problems, your company's own solution, limited small issues that are understandable, comprehensible, and can be seen as something that is easy to solve. Yet, however, the challenges we're facing are global, and we need to understand in this whole global context where we are and why these challenges, opportunities, problems, or crises are born. What I'm presenting is not my opinions, it's actually only hard facts. So there's true science and hard science. The only reason why I'm here talking about it is that there's very few people who have the courage to rise above. Not saying it's better to rise above, but to rise above and see these things, look for big questions, look for problems that have not yet been solved. So this is the population growth of our planet. You see Africa there. Africa is developing really well, growing, especially now, the youngest continent. Next slide shows you the wealth growth. And here you see how Africa just vanished. Africa vanished. Look at the previous slide. Can you go back? Thank you. Look at the population growth, and then the next slide, and this is the big challenge. We, humanity, society, the world, has to solve this problem. And the solution will be solved with the fourth, fifth, or whatever industrial revolution. But one thing that we all need to understand is that in the past, next slide please, in the past, change has been driven by various types of organizations. This is we'll share the slides, you don't have to take pictures, so it's it'll be easier that way. You see that, and I hate these chairs, if you have a vision, skills, an incentive, and an action plan, it only leads to frustration if you do not have the resources. So important when you're looking at change, next slide, when you're looking at change, you have to understand that this is not a railroad track. The world is not a railroad track. Individuals' lives are not railroad tracks. Next slide. Actually, they are pretty much like this. This is what life is about. Life is a road that turns like this, and you're sitting on a bus. You're actually not in the driver's seat. You're sitting in a bus, and if you look at the bus here, you don't know whether the bus is going up or down. Right? The one super skill that we all individuals and communities and societies have to develop over the next decade or so is actually how we deal with uncertainties. Because uncertainties will be coming. Next slide. The basic idea, and this is from the office when I for the first time left Wikimedia Foundation's office in San Francisco. Wikimedia, the free dictionary kind of thing. I know, yeah. This greets, when you walk out of the office, this greets every employee. It says, let's make better mistakes tomorrow. Why mistakes? Mistakes happen only when you're doing things that you haven't done before, that you don't know what to do. And that is what we need to deal with. We need to do things we haven't done before. And tomorrow and today, we will have to make mistakes because the systems we have built and that we have implemented are not good enough. I come from the happiest nation in the world, Finland. We have the best education system in the world in Finland, haven't we? We are the most good-looking people. I use less shampoo than most of you, right? That is why I'm here, because of my good looks. No, not true. That's untrue. Next slide. This is a Soviet economist from the Soviet Union. Kondrachev came up with a comparison of the Standard & Poor Index and kind of the changes in our societies. And he came to the conclusion that the society grows, reaps, and then collapses. And somewhere here, after the financial crisis of 07, 09, we're moving towards the next Kondrachev's wave. One big thing is the wealth of the middle classes, next slide, was built in the past systems, in the old systems. It was run on capitalism. There was DG, actually, good word about the capitalistic system. We love capitalism, but in the future, capitalism, money, the capital, the financial capital, is not as meaningful as it was in the past. How do I dare say that? I say it because when I started my entrepreneurial career in 1988, I started my first company. I bought myself a first Macintosh computer, and I bought an additional 70 megabytes of hard disk drive. The 70 megabits of hard disk drive cost me $25,000. And if you look at your devices, you have gigs and bigs and whatever, and it's a few hundred rands, and you'll have that. So in the past, to be able to do something, you had to have a lot of money to invest into things. Building a factory requires money. But now, when the youth comes out, when we elderly people, if we remain courageous and young and curious and we build new things, it doesn't cost that much to build things. You can use cloud-based technologies at no cost and just build your dreams. So capitalism, the way we've seen it, financial capital as the resource that is most important, is not true. In the future, in this new paradigm, new values will rule the world. And if we do not, and there where, DG absolutely right, if we do not instill the human basic values based on transparency, trust, love, those good things, if we don't instill them there, someone else will do something else. Next slide. This challenge that we're faced with was already presented by the clever scientists back in the 70s. The MIT implemented a Club of Rome in the late 60s to research what happens to the world, and they published a book, The Limits of Growth, in 1971, where they predicted that by 2030 the population, our human population, will start declining because of the fact that our economic system collapses, and it is only due to the fact that we are over-consuming our planet. Next slide. Simultaneously, research from already 1950s shows that only 2.5% of the human population are innovators, people who see beyond the horizon, build new things. The majority of the population just sits there. Further science, Daniel Kahneman, a great book you all should read, Thinking Fast and Slow, or the research that is conducted by his followers, shows that 95% of the human population, 95% of their time when they think that they're thinking, they are actually not thinking, they're just behaving. Let's repeat these facts. 95% of the human population, 95% of their time does nothing else than consume oxygen and pollute. Fact. We can laugh about it, but if we don't do something now, this world is that I would be using the F word if there wasn't a highly esteemed crowd here. Next slide. Hope exists. This is the legislative system of the United States. You see here, even though change requires, there's a lot of things that need to be changed. It takes time, but in the end, the change happens. But it takes time, and you're not allowed to give up. Next slide. There are mechanisms of change. This is De Geels from the Netherlands. A lot of crazy good research has come out over the past few decades. But this is a mechanism for societal change. This is how technology interacts with society. Next slide. And here we see that it isn't technology that actually changes the society, but it is the society that decides how it uses new technologies. Let's repeat. It is the society and the way the society uses new technologies that shapes the technologies that are used. Technology doesn't come from geniuses somewhere. Technology that is used comes from an interaction of the communities and the technologies themselves, changing the way the world works towards, hopefully, but a better. Next slide. The ultimate goal of the so-called design thinking is to design a better society, not just services or companies or businesses or more beautiful clothes. No. The ultimate goal of design thinking, user-centered or citizen-centered design thinking, is the creation of a better society, where the society actually works for the citizens. What citizens want, what problems citizens have, define how that society needs to be changed. And this is contrarian to the majority of the people sitting in high-power jobs, because they would be losing their job. Because the most interesting thing about the future is we're all going there, but nobody's been there. And that was the science behind, here's the right slide, Herbert Simon, a Nobel laureate from the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, the father of design thinking, one of the fathers of artificial intelligence, a great man. A certain predefined result, and if that result is good, then that system is good. Next slide. I have played quite a major role in the way the world works, but I haven't received any rewards for it. And you'll be seeing that here. So this is 2000, or the name of the new pope to be announced. You have one mobile device there, you have another one there, you have a third one there. There's altogether 5 mobile devices in this crowd, 2005. The next slide, 2013, shows you the same place, same happening with a sea of mobile devices. I happened to be the man that on October 14th of 2003 came up with the concept of the mobile media application. So if ever you used on a mobile device something that consumes media, it's my invention. I made no money with it. Nokia messed around with me and our company. I had no way of predicting how big of an impact it would have on multiple businesses in the world. But I've seen it. And the one thing that it has taught me, next slide, is that the old... I believe in science. And I think that evidence-based things are really important. There's one challenge, though. Science always looks back. How to create a forward-looking, proactive society, or even individual lives that bets on science, is a big challenge. An example, in 2010, when I became an activist in the field of mobile learning, I initiated large research in Mexico with Tec de Monterrey, a large university. And the reason for that research was, my personal conviction is, before we scale, we need to know, not guess, think, hope, love, we must know that what we deliver works, right? So that's why. And the interesting thing is, what I'll be talking about on the next few slides is something we validated already in 2010. And that's the challenge. For education system to next slide, to transform itself, next slide, takes an age. I'm here to talk about, after that important thing, this is the secondary thing. Though this is secondary, this is important because now, it's not perfect, but it's the best there is. Next slide. What have you done with the graphics? Are you rescaling this somehow? The fonts are not crisp. This is a beautiful slide. When we share it with you, it will look good. One of the big challenges, the most expensive challenge in the world is that the hard skills that are required in today's world and tomorrow's world keep on changing. According to World Economic Forum, and this all data is from the time before pandemic, because the pandemic hit us hard, uncertainty, and we haven't yet had time to conduct this research. WEF will be launching a similar update next week, the labor update, at their annual conference in Davos next week. But billions of people every day without the skills that they need to actually perform well. How much time do I have? Do I have still 8 minutes? That we need in our job are changing rapidly because the technologies are changing so fast. You look at a truck from the 1960s or 70s that you could fix. I could fix the first car I got was a Volkswagen Beetle. I could fix it myself. I opened my today's hybrid and I'm like, so the hard skills keep on changing faster and faster. And that means that there are billions of people out there who have only one tool that can help them learn. And what is that tool? What is the tool that they have? It is the mobile device. Everything else is slow and outdated and will become outdated, right? Next slide. Not even I can read those slides. But what it says here is that this is global. 26%, and this is most dangerous, only 26% of the population are motivated to learn new skills. And we all know that if you're not motivated to learn, you will not learn. So somehow, and this problem altogether costs $11.5 trillion US dollars until 2025. Next slide. Education must reach all. I see, as an organization, also as a country, we see education as a human right. Education is a basic human right. Every individual on the planet must have a right to equip themselves with the skills that they feel motivated about, with the skills that are relevant for their communities and their countries. It is a must. FUNSI doesn't focus on the 10% of the top 10% of the world because they will manage. We all know those people. They will manage. We focus on those who don't yet have a chance to educate themselves. Because that is the majority of the population, and the majority of the population should have a good, welcomed right to become what they can become. Next slide. The skills, World Economic Forum once again says that 50% of today's workforce needs to be retrained until 2025. They need to be retrained. Not just an additional training, but retrained. Unlearn, learn, and relearn. I like the relearn. The fact that formal, informal, and non-formal education or learning are ever present. We learn everywhere. This is the status of South Africa. I come from Finland, the least polarized nation in the world. And I love South Africa. My favorite second place I would call home, the most polarized country in the world. When I first came here in 2010, my good dear friend Marlon, my brother Marlon Parker, the founder of R Labs, like a society reconstruction of the living labs in communities in the townships of Cape Town. I came here and I started looking at you wonderful people, this wonderful country, and I asked myself, what could you actually become? And that's why I'm here. FUNSI is here so actively because this is the most complex and complicated place. And if we can help you empower yourself to become the better versions of yourselves, we'll make it anywhere. Just like, so you're the New York for me as a Frank Sinatra. We The unemployment rate of South Africa, I didn't want to see the next slide yet. Arnold. The unemployment rate here is roughly 60%, 58 point whatever percent. When we started this escapade with Excelink a few months back in October, I also have a role in the Finnish education expert industry, so our embassy actually organized an event, a meeting with the DHET, and I was looking at the statistics and looking at the sheer goodwill and the sort of like the sparkle in the eyes of these people, and I said, listen, everything is good, but you're building a system for the minority. And they said, no, what do you mean with minority? And I said, you are building a system for the minority that is employed. The vast majority of the people actually drop out of the system. Next slide. We have been conducting, remember, evidence-based. I want DG and I want SPAC to, I want everyone to be able to say, this crazy good-looking guy from Finland was speaking all these things, but he also has the facts. So, of the research, it has been validated that simply by taking a FUNSI course, 100% of the South African job seekers who took the course felt themselves more motivated and were able to acquire skills that helped them to find the dream job. So it works. Next slide. We're a global company. When we go into a market, what we do is we have a process. We have to understand what skills are in demand. We have to look at, what skills are there, where are the gaps, and then we have to create relevant learning and deliver. Our company is proud of delivering everything in 6 days. When we start a development work, it's like 6 days and we deliver. In this case, Head AI, an artificial intelligence company that 10 days ago, and scraped 10,000 job ads or whatever. I think 12,000 was the correct number. You see that the number one job that is being looked for is manager, and then it's recruitment manager. We then use the AI to scrape those, next slide, to scrape those job ads and see what skills are required for that said job. And this is the analysis. We then went to our FUNSI library. I love it. Everything is very crispy when you go to it. So what we did, we compiled a list of courses that are suitable for the job applicant who wants to become a recruitment manager. And this process we have automated. The future tense. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. We're partnered with weird, wonderful, great people. People who are more good-looking than I am. Next slide. We exist COVID with the United Nations of South Africa. We are there and we're loved by the users. Next slide. The evangelist. But I believe, I know, actually, that learn an educator to help you learn. And that is why, coming from Finland, loving teachers and being an educator myself, we put the educator in a key position, regardless of whether the learning happens online, in a blended setting, or in classroom. Next slide. An example for that is Boland College, a Tibet college here in South Africa, where we were desperate enough. But Boland College said, let's test this. They tested it, and we ran a test program there, and both the teachers and the learners say, this needs to become everyday used stuff now. The good thing, the best thing about this, because we knew that this would happen, was that the other classroom at Boland College was disabled individuals. We have now proven the fact that mobile learning, the way we deliver it, actually includes and involves those disabled individuals who have the same human rights as we, healthy people, that they also learned better than they ever learned before. Next slide. Another example for this is with Cyril Ramaphosa Education Trust. We have tested and piloted programs, and they have included FUNSI as a component for all of the applicants to their programs, where they give access to the free courses at no cost, obviously free courses, right? And they also sponsor paid courses for those individuals who want to become entrepreneurial. Next slide. The rural farmers in Nigeria are an example of what can be done in rural areas where it is far too expensive to create anything else, build schools or educate teachers, whatever. So you can use mobile to reach everyone. Next slide. State of Lagos, Nigeria. They are developing a new comprehensive school system. And Funzi is the core component in delivery of these new skills, the future skills, into the classrooms. Next slide. And in Lesotho, I don't know, have you got the signature? They're a bit slow, aren't they?
Yeah, we're just waiting for the cash.
Yeah, we're waiting for the cash. Cash is king, remember? But Lesotho sees this as something that doesn't do anything else for the existing education system than complement it and allow it to transform. Funzi doesn't replace anything, it just adds to everything. Next slide. Remember when I said that happiness was the goal of us individuals? Together, when we learn and equip ourselves with the skills that allow us to build a future for ourselves, a life for ourselves, next slide, we'll be happy together. That's all I have. Thank you. Have a seat.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming closer. All right. Good day. Good day again. Thank you so much for that. Very informative. It's actually, it's almost like you are thrusted into the future, the solutions that we hoped for before COVID. And now, because we've been exposed to the importance of technology with COVID demands, this makes sense and it's such an amazing solution. And I have a few questions for you, okay? You made mention to the importance of...
No, so, this is I'm blunt, and I'm honest, and I'm a good guy, and I'm an optimist, right?
Yes.
More than a decade ago, I started looking at and trying to understand why Africa is the way Africa is. Mm-hmm. And there's a researcher called Nathan Nunn that most Africans have never heard of. Nathan Nunn is a researcher, used to be a... You do not fail, you cannot try something that you haven't done before. That is why, and this is kind of part, Dr. D said that I'm doing on so I have a grand theory and I'm working on a PhD at Stanford about this thing. So like one of the components of this grand theory being something that constructs multiple existing sciences, puts them together, links them together. One of the things is that is based on Simon's thinking. The way the current society